Assalamualaikum and hello, my name is Hazwan Asyraf and my message number is ci240070. Today I am presenting my video reflection for the subject Web Service Technology, specifically focusing on lab5, which is related to SOAP and WSDL meaning. For this lab activity, I use the My Calculator project that I previously developed in lab4. This project is a simple web service application that performs basic mathematical operations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. Okay, the purpose of this reflection is to explain how SOAP messages are connected to or mapped to the WSDL description file. Through this activity, I learned how web services communicate between a client and server using XML-based message and service description. Okay, in this presentation, I will explain the importance of WSDL, demonstrate how the SOAP and WSDL files are generated, and finally show how the SOAP request and response elements correspond directly with the WSDL definitions. Okay. First, I would like to explain what WSDL is and why it is important in web services. WSDL stands for Web Service Description Language. It is an XML-based document that acts like a formal contract between the service provider and the client application. Okay, the WSDL file describes everything the client needs to know before communicating with the web service. It tells the client what operations or functions are available, what input parameters are required, what data types are used, what response will be returned, and how the service can be accessed. Without WSDL, the client would not know how to interact correctly with the web service. There are several important components inside a WSDL file. The first component is called types. This section defines the data structure and data types used in the service, such as integer, double, or string values. The second component is called message. Message defines the data being exchanged between the client and the server. For example, an add request may contain two parameters named x and y. Okay, so the third component is called port type. This section defines the operation or function provided by the web service, such as add, subtract, multiply and divide. The fourth component is called binding. Binding explains how the communication happens. In my project, the service uses SOAP over HTTP protocol. Finally, the service section provides the actual endpoint URL where the web service can be accessed. By understanding this element, we can clearly see how WSDL becomes the blueprint for communication between systems. There are several. Next, I will explain how I generated and tested the WSDL SOAP message in my project. In my development environment, I generated the WSDL file by right-clicking on the My Server Calculate web service and selecting the option Generate and Copy WSDL. After generating the WSDL, I could see the XML structure that describes all the operations in my calculator service. To test the web service, I used the web service tester provided by the service. The tester can be accessed through the following URL, which is localhost 8080. Using this tester, I execute the operations such as addition and subtraction. The tester automatically generated SOAP request and SOAP response message in XML format. This helped me understand how data is sent from the client to the server and how the server returns to the result back to the client. Okay, by comparing the SOAP message with the WSDL file, I was able to identify how every operation and parameter is connected. Okay, next, now I will explain the mapping between the SOAP message and the WSDL file, which is the main part of this reflection. During this section, I recommend showing the SOAP request and response side by side with the WSDL code for easier understanding. First one is the operation name. First, let us look at the SOAP request. Inside the SOAP body, we can see XML elements such as For example, this element represents the operation being requested by the client. When we compare this with the WSDL file, we can see that it directly maps to the operations defined inside the port type section. For example, this means the SOAP request follows the exact operation name defined in the WSDL contract. The same concept also applies to other operations such as subtract, multiply, and divide. Secondly is input parameter. Next, inside the SOAP request, we can see the input parameters such as these parameters represent the value sent by the client for the calculation. When checking the WSDL file, we can find that these parameters are already defined in the message and complex type section. For example, the WSDL specifies that the add operation requires two parameters named X and Y with the data type double. This proves that the SOAP request must follow the structure defined in the WSDL. If the parameter names or data types are incorrect, the service may fail to process the request. Therefore, the WSDL ensures consistency and standardization between client and the server communication. Thirdly is the SOAP response and the return value. After the server processes the request, it sends back a SOAP response. So inside the SOAP response, we can see the return value. For example, this value, is 99, which is this value represent the result of adding 55 and 44. When we compare this with the WSDL file, we can see that the output message for the add response operations defines a return value. This means the WSDL not only defines the input parameters but also defines the structure of the response returned by the server. Because both the client and the server follow the same WSDL contract, communication becomes reliable and understandable for both systems. And lastly is the relationship between SOAP and WSDL. From this mapping activity, I learned that SOAP and WSDL work together closely. The SOAP message acts as the actual envelope carrying the request and response data. Meanwhile, the WSDL acts as the blueprint or instruction manual that defines how the SOAP message should be structured. In simple terms, WSDL tells what should be sent, and SOAP carries the actual data. Without WSDL, the client would not know how to format the SOAP request correctly. For conclusion, this lab activity helped me better understanding the relationship between SOAP and WSDL in web services technology. By mapping the SOAP request and response with the WSDL file, I learned that the WSDL acts as a formal contract, while SOAP acts as the communication mechanism that transfer the data. The exercise also show how the different systems can communicate successfully even if they are developed using different programming language or platform, as long as they follow the same XML-based standard and protocols. Overall, this lab improved my understanding of service-oriented communication and the importance of structured web service description in real-world application. That's all from me. Thank you.